Hello everyone and welcome back to the round 11 of the 2021 candidates tournament. It's Anish, Giri versus Ding Liren, and the Ding has not been having the greatest tournament. He only got one win in the first half of the candidates against Fabiano Caruana, and he's been pretty much stuck in last place or sharing last place ever since. And here in round 11 he faces Anish Giri. Giri has the white pieces, and this is quite a wild one. It finished very abruptly, and it was a very swift game. So without further ado, let's check it out and see why this was so. So Giri with the white pieces opened with e4, and we have e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, and bishop to b5. So just a normal Ruy Lopez here. We have a6, Morphy's defense, and bishop to a4. And I know what you're thinking, how can a Ruy Lopez end suddenly? Well, here we have knight to f6 by Ding, we have castles, and bishop to e7. Nothing out of the ordinary. We have bishop captures on c6, d captures, and now d3, strengthening the center here. Bishop to d6, black also helps out with the defense of the e5 pawn, and now knight b to d2. We have bishop to e6 by Ding, and now there are some very notable games where moves like b3 was played, and also d4 is a known move, but here Giri plays knight to b3, and it is already as of move 9 that we have a completely new game. So let's see how Ding deals with this. He still has to decide whether he wants to castle king side or he wants to develop the queen and then castle queen side, because white castled king side. So, you know, could be a bit of a more of a dynamic game if we have castles of opposite sides, and this is exactly what the Ding goes for. He plays queen to e7. And okay, we have knight to a5 by Giri, an excellent score for the knight, and you can't really kick it away. If you play b6, just knight captures on c6, and the knight is, although it's on the edge of the board, it's still a pretty good piece. In the future you can play something like maybe queen e2, d4, sacrifice the knight here, maybe capture on a6, who knows what might happen. But okay, Ding castles queen side nonetheless, and queen to e2 now. As planned, we have bishop to g4, now saying, okay, this knight isn't going anywhere, and c3 now. We have c5, and now comes a3, preparing b4. And if you look at the position now, like we said, when there are castles on opposite sides, you wanna attack. That's generally how you win a game when there's castles on opposite sides. But it's much easier for white to attack black's queen side than it is for black to attack white's king side. Because here, if you imagine we just push b4, we're already threatening to open up lines. Even if black pushes this or does something, we can still push b5 and then open up lines this way. Whereas it takes black a few moves to get all the way up to those f, g, and h pawn, because they still have not been moved. So here, well, you could start maybe playing on the king side. Ding starts with c6, and this basically just gives another target to white, but it works. So let's see how Ding goes about this. We have b4. Giri now threatens to open up the b file, but now bishop to c7. Now, of course, you cannot capture because the knight hangs, so he needs to go back with the knight to b3, and now we have knight to d7. Saying, okay, if you capture here, it's not a problem. While you will open up the b file, for example, captures, there's really not all that much happening here. I mean, this knight still can't move. Yes, you can use the semi-open b file for your rooks, but at any point I can just, you know, play some like b6 and my position is perfectly fine. So instead, after knight to d7, we have h3, pushing back the light square bishop. We have bishop to h5, and now bishop to e3 with a triple attack on the c5 pawn. And now Ding says, all right, I did everything I wanted to on the queen side. Let's now start expanding on the king side. And of course, he does so with f5. He has a nice target on f4, and maybe he's even considering f4 to get rid of this bishop here. So bishop captures on c5, this pawn was sacrificed by Ding, and now queen to f7. And now it seems like Giri's attack has been slowed down a little bit. Ding gave up a pawn, and now he's ready to start his attack with g5 and g4. So here, rook 8 to b1. That's that's the file that's most likely to open up, so you do want to have a rook on that file. And now g5. It's a very tricky idea, because here white can actually capture. It doesn't matter that the queen hangs, because the black queen also hangs. And if something like queen to g6, then it's goodbye for white, because for example knight f3, you're gonna play rook h to g8, and after you defend checkmate, somehow then f4 comes, and then the entire position just crumbles. For example g4, we can just capture and checkmate the white king. So instead, after g5, e captures on f5 by Giri, and now comes g4, attacking that knight. And then if the knight moves, then ideas like captures, you open up the attack towards the white queen. The problem is here, Giri has knight to g5, comes with an attack on black's queen. Queen captures on f5, and now h4. This is how he closes up the file. Well, you have to figure out what to play here. If you play something like h6, it doesn't really matter. Knight to e4 is a perfectly good option. And if you try something like g3, doesn't really do anything. You just blunder a piece, and you don't really have an attack or anything. So instead, after this h4 move, Ding tried b6 to get rid of Giri's light square bishop, but here Giri said, nope, you're more than welcome to have that bishop. I'm going with knight to e4, and this is where things start to get really interesting. Now white has control of the d6 square, and it's up to Ding to decide whether he wants to maybe try and consolidate, maybe play knight f6 to gain more control of this square. Maybe he wants to start pushing with g3. A lot of interesting possibilities here, but he decides to accept the challenge, and he plays b captures on c5. And okay, let's see what Giri had in mind. B captures on c5, now again with control of the d6 square, threatening knight to d6, and now knight to f6. Now both the rook and the bishop control this, but it doesn't matter. Knight to d6 check, you have to capture this, otherwise you lose the queen. There's a nice fork here if you missed that. Captures, and now Ding just grabs the pawn on d6. So rook captures on d6, and now the move that we've discussed from the beginning of the game, d4. It's important to open up the queen's attack towards the a6 pawn, and well, here you have a lot of options indeed. And none of them are particularly good. For example, one of the better ones seem to be king to d8, and then you simply allow queen captures on e5. That's also one of the problems. For example, queen captures, pawn captures, attacks both the knight and the rook, and after you move the rook, for example, pawn captures on f6, and the game continues with white's position being considerably better, but black maybe has some options of well, playing this out to a draw. That all depends on how Giri would play it. But instead, after d4, we have c5 by Ding. Ding wasn't all that great on the clock. I think he was below 4 minutes, could be even below 2 minutes, but I'm pretty sure he was below 4, and it's only move 27, so 13 more moves to reach time control. But now Giri just grabs it, knight captures on c5, as the rook was now defending the a6 pawn, and here we have rook to e8, but now his position is completely lost, so feel free to pause the video and win this game for Anish while I give you a couple of seconds in the most simple way possible. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on doing anything like knight captures on a6, queen to b2, also a possibility, but the quickest way is queen to c4. This is what Giri played, and it was in this position on move 29 that Ding Liren resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Point is, you are threatening some very nasty checks, discovered checks here. One option is, let's say, rook c6, but it doesn't matter. You're just going to play d5. And now you don't really have an option here. You have to move away from the defense of the a6 pawn, and you are very, very slowly but surely getting checkmated. Queen a6 check, king d8, you're going to deliver queen d6 check, king to c8, and now knight to a6, threatening checkmate. And after you move the rook, doesn't really matter where, you're just getting rook to b8 checkmate. So that's one of the options. And another one, also a nice one, is not blocking with the rook but rather moving the king, but then you just suffer severe material loss. Knight b7 check, king has to move, you're gonna grab this rook, captures. Now you can capture here with check, all of the lines have been opened, rook captures, and now rook to b7, completely cut off the black king from escaping. Then rook to d1 is coming, and there's not all that much you can do here. If queen e4, let's say you offer a queen trade, queen c7 check, king to e6, now rook b6 check, king to f5, and now we play queen to g7, and there is no defense either. Queen captures here is the game over, or queen to g5 checkmate is game over. So only one of the lines, but of course Ding knows that after queen to c4 there is nothing more to be done here, and of course he resigned. Which brings Giri incredibly close to the leader of the tournament, Jan Nepomniachtchi, but we are going to discuss the standings after we show at least one more game from round 11 of the candidates, and then we're going to discuss the standings, who can do what, who still has time to catch up, and so on. So that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Edmund Freeman, Vlad Ularu, Raymond Zhao, David Kimura, and Lucas Berlund for contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Continuing the coverage of the candidates tournament, checking up on your wonderful suggestions, and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.